Subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon so that you know when live we go. Hello and welcome to our weekly session of discussion on Explained section of Indian Express. The idea here is to increase our scope of coverage of current affairs for civil service examination. But in doing so, we shall not be repeating topics from DNS. Considering this, the topics that we have chosen for discussion for this week are there on your screen. Let's begin. The first explained article that we are going to take is this: Pre-pack-Insolvency Resolution Option for MSMEs. First of all, let me tell you, insolvency is an important process in any economy. A company can fail in a market economy if the entire sector has become irrelevant, either because of absence of innovation or the obsoleteness of technology, whatever. In that case, companies running in that sector needs to be closed down in order to facilitate the release of the resources for other competitive users and entrepreneurs pursuing emerging opportunities. It may also be a case that a company is not doing well because of absence of innovation, competitiveness, resoluteness in the management. In that case also, if the company has become bankrupt, then insolvency process has to begin on time and complete soon so that resources in an economy can be efficiently managed. However, bankruptcy can also be knocking at the door because of some uncontrollable exogenous factor. For instance, COVID-19 pandemic. COVID-19 pandemic has hit all companies, whether big or small. And companies have been filing bankruptcy all over the world. For instance, in UK, 64% of businesses across the industries were at the risk of insolvency last September. Globally, corporate insolvency has been estimated by IMF and World Bank to be around 26% in 2020. Now, insolvency of this nature is because of uncontrollable factor. So you need to support the industry so that it does not have a premature death. If you carry out the insolvency process like this, in a situation where your industries are stressed, that is not going to serve anyone. Not the lenders or the creditors, not the borrower, not the investor, not the stakeholders, not the employees, not the shareholders, nobody. Government of India has been very supportive to Indian industry, specifically to MSME. And several measures have been taken up to reduce the stress of MSME sector. For example, Government of India, after the onset of COVID-19 pandemic, increased the threshold of default for insolvency process to be initiated under IBC from rupees 1 lakh to 1 crore. This gave respite to many MSMEs. Then government suspended the insolvency initiation altogether. But this moratorium on initiation of insolvency process now has come to an end. Then during the pandemic, RBI permitted the creditors, lending institutions, to extend the moratorium on term loans installments by 6 months. In June last year, Government of India constituted a subcommittee of Insolvency Law Committee. This subcommittee was chaired by Mr. M.S. Sahu, the chairperson of Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India. This subcommittee of Insolvency Law Committee recommended a pre-pack framework. Pre-pack framework is also called as pre-plan framework or pre-agreed framework or pre-agreement framework. This pre-pack framework will be within the basic structure of Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code 2016. But the basic rules governing a pre-pack framework will be obviously different than the normal procedure followed under IBC. And this has just begun in India. For whom? For only MSMEs with a default of up to rupees 1 crore. This is not open for big corporates. Maybe if it works out, Government of India will extend it to other corporates as well. But remember, the pre-pack framework for insolvency resolution, which we will just begin understanding, is only for MSMEs at the moment. Although it is not a new thing, it is very popular in Europe and US, but it's a bold initiative that Government of India is trying for the first time in Indian economy. Government of India has been trying really hard to improve the performance in resolving insolvency. Indian government has established a modern insolvency regime by introducing Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code in 2016. Because of continuous effort of Government of India, India's rank in resolving insolvency, one of the parameter under Ease of Doing Business Index of World Bank, has improved from 36 to 52. Similarly, ease of resolving insolvency is also one of the parameter in Global Innovation Index. Here also, India has shown a stellar performance, improving its rank from 111 in 2017 to 47 in 2020. India's performance in resolving insolvency will further improve by this measure taken by Government of India to promulgate an ordinance to allow for pre-packs. For whom? For MSMEs with defaults of up to rupees 1 crore. Now let's begin understanding what is this pre-packs or pre-plan or pre-agreed insolvency procedures. Suppose there is a company C. This company C has taken money from creditors, the banks, the lenders. In the eventuality of default, under IBC, the creditor will take away the management of the company. And then the creditor will decide what is to be done with it. But under pre-packs, this does not happen. Pre-packs are dispute resolution mechanism where a stressed company, through an agreement between creditors and investors, sometimes also between borrowers and creditors, instead of a public bidding process. During IBC procedure, when the creditor, the banks, they will be taking over the management of the company under stress, then later on what would happen, they can sell it up to any investor who is willing to buy the company. And that selling is done through process of open public bidding, so that resource maximization happens. But under pre-packs, two things can happen. Either the borrower of the company, the stakeholders, the promoters, they can get into an agreement with the creditor. That agreement can be of any kind. That agreement could be to increase the term of the loan. That agreement could also be to decrease the interest rate. It may be beneficial to both. The creditor may help the stakeholders, the promoters of the company, to revive the company and in turn get the principal and interest or the reduced amount of that. What else can happen here is the promoters of this company can get in touch with an investor and make a plan of transfer of company's management and other stakes to this investor. The stakeholders of the company will have to convince the creditor that it is in the interest of all that the management be transferred, the entire stake be transferred from the present promoters, the stakeholders, to this particular investor. If the plan is agreed upon by the creditor, then the creditor and investor have to get into a formal agreement. There are no courts involved in this. But then there's a possibility that some shady things happen here. The creditors and the promoters of the company may be trying to bunker with the system. So when they formalize a plan of management shift, transfer of stakes from the present stakeholders to this particular investor, that has to be approved by a competent body. So far what we have learned is this. There is no public bidding. There is an agreement between the creditor and the investor, sometime between the creditor and the stakeholders, the promoters of the company. The third thing you have to know about pre-pack is the management is still with the incumbent until the final deal is made, until the process of transfer of management from the present promoters or the board to the investor. Under Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, the moment the procedure is initiated, the creditor takes hold of the management. But here, the management is still with the present management of the company, even though the procedure under pre-pack will begin. The procedure will begin the moment the present promoters, the stakeholders, they got in touch with the investor. Then they made a plan. The plan is shown to the creditor. The creditor gets on board with the plan. Then the plan will be taken to a competent body. That body here is National Company Law Tribunal Court. If the court approves the plan, then an agreement has to be signed between the creditor and the investor. And then the present management can go and the investor can take over the company. And until that happens, the promoters of the company will keep running the company. Remember, this is extremely important point, and this is the heart of pre-pack procedure. Another aspect of this procedure, or in general of any insolvency procedure, is that the company under stress could have taken money from many creditors, from many banks, from many lenders. So it is not that the entire creditor has to agree upon the initiation of the insolvency procedure. The insolvency procedure under the pre-packs can begin if 66% of the creditor by value, they agree with the plan. The ordinance that has been brought by the government say that the process of pre-pack insolvency procedure has to be completed in 120 days. This will be considerable improvement over IBC, which takes roughly around 270 days. There is another provision of confidentiality, meaning when the planning will be happening, things will not be done public. The stakeholders, they will obviously know about it, but it not has to be put in public domain. So it will not erode off the credibility of the company. Presently, this procedure has been rolled out only for MSMEs. The long and short of it is this. When a MSME gets financially stressed, it can prepare an insolvency plan. That plan has to be presented to the secured creditors. Secured creditors generally means banks or other lending institutions. If the creditor agree with the plan, then the plan is submitted to National Company Law Tribunal Court. If the National Company Law Tribunal Court approves the plan, then the plan gets opened for a Swiss challenge. Swiss challenge in general means whenever an idea is presented, that gets open for others to beat that idea, to come up with a better idea. And if third party is able to come up with a better idea, then the original presenter of the idea has to either match up or withdraw. This is generally taken up in a government infrastructure bidding process. This Swiss challenge provision has been brought in at this stage to ensure that the money, the financial resource of creditor is not played with. It's not that people are bunkering with the system and they're eating up the financial resource of creditors, the lending institutions, the banks. The insolvency plan should be such that maximum resource recovery must be there for the creditors, the lending institutions. If no other plan can beat the presented insolvency plan, then an agreement will be signed between the creditor and the new investor who is going to take over the stressed company. And this agreement is legally binding. That is why the pre-pack procedure has been made part of the law. An ordinance has been introduced for this. This is not coming just from general regulations rules given by the government. During the process of resolution, the existing owners retain the management. It may also so happen that the agreement is actually reached between the creditor and the present owner, as we have talked about initially. So in that case, the ownership of the company will be still with the original owner. This is the general understanding of pre-pack resolution process. The present resolution structure or process that is followed under IBC is called as Corporate Insolvency Resolution Process. And on an average, it takes around 270 days for entire process to be completed under CIRP. For pre-pack resolution process we have seen earlier, it is by law mandated to be completed in 120 days. So, what is the benefit of pre-pack or pre-plan or pre-agreed upon insolvency resolution mechanism? First and foremost, the debtor would remain in possession of management. And this is crucial. Continuity without disruption in the management of the company is important to bring it on track. When there is change in management, the reputation of the company is hurt. The valuation of the company goes down. There is more unease among the employees. When the incumbent is in possession of management, then the stress of the company is made known to the creditor early, and that makes the chances of recovery high. Because the incumbent remains in possession of the management, promoters' support for insolvency resolution plan is more, which again is very important for the plan to work. Resolution under pre-packs are quick. We have seen that it is mandated by law that it has to be done within 120 days. In case of corporate insolvency resolution process under IBC, it takes around on an average 270 days. If the resolution is quick, two things will happen. Number one, it will be cost effective. Also, because there is no court involved, the cost that goes at the interface of the court is less. Because the resolution is quick, there is chances of value maximization for the company. The longer the company remains under stress, the more depletion of resources happen. Apart from the reason of quick resolution, value maximization will happen for other reasons. We have seen earlier that the plan of resolution that is not done public before finalization of agreement. So the brand value of the company is not hurt. Apart from that, there is another reason why value maximization is there in case of pre-packs. We have seen earlier that debtor remains in possession of management, and this encourages them to start the resolution process on time. So depletion of resource, deterioration of the financial condition, increase in financial stress is less. So there is less chance of a company to doom if otherwise it can be made financially healthy again. Continuity of management, which is the heart of pre-pack insolvency resolution procedures, also help in job preservation. In UK, it has been observed that pre-pack's insolvency resolution helps in 100% job retention. In Netherlands, it has been observed that conventional bankruptcy resolution process results in 35% job retention. But pre-pack resolutions results in around 54% job retention. Because courts are as such not directly involved, at least in the initial stages of resolution process, that will also decrease the pressure on our courts. Provided courts do not admit cases that are settled already in law. For example, initially we saw that for pre-pack resolution process to get started, only 66% of creditor by value have to come on board. This number has been arrived at via various Supreme Court judgments. So this thing is settled in law that it is okay if 66% of creditors are on board. Similarly, the ordinance has set National Companies Law Tribunal to approve the plan. Now for these things, the court should not admit the cases. If the minority creditor, they go to the court that their permission has not been sought before going ahead with the resolution plan, or if the judgment of NCLT that is going to be challenged in the court, then some of the important purpose of the law will be defeated. Now let's make a quick comparison of corporate insolvency resolution process that is followed under Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code 2016 and pre-pack resolution process. Which is more transparent? CIRP is more transparent because the pre-pack plan does not have to be made public. Which is more flexible? Pre-pack is more flexible because the creditor and the debtor, they can decide the plan accordingly. Whether the interest rate has to be reduced or the term of payment has to be increased or whatever they agree upon. Which is more cost effective because no courts are involved, because the settlement is quick. So pre-pack is more cost effective. Pre-pack is more time effective. Disruption in business is less in pre-pack because incumbent continues to be in management. Value maximization for various reasons we have seen is there in pre-pack. But value maximization also happens in case of corporate insolvency resolution process. There the reason is open public bidding. So the highest bidder becomes the investor. In that sense, value maximization is also there in CIRP, which has greater regulation and higher role of courts and the role of insolvency practitioners, the professionals. Of course, in case of CIRP, corporate insolvency resolution procedure, a process, comes from IBC 2016. It is legally binding. Pre-pack resolution process also has been added as a chapter in IBC and it is also legally binding, remember. In case of MSME where default is of less than 1 crore, pre-pack has now been allowed. It of course has benefits, but CIRP also has its own benefits. That's all you needed to know from this topic. The next article that we are going to do is this: Government Security Acquisition Program for Market Boost. This is more a kind of news to be known rather than an article to be understood, because the background for this we have already covered in one of our explained discussion video for the 4th week of February. When we were doing this news, what rise in bond yield means for investors, government. Then we saw that the yield on 10-year bond in India rose to more than 6%. And at the same time, the forecasted fiscal deficit for the current financial year is 6.8%. The fiscal deficit for the previous financial year was around 9.5%. Government already has raised till now rupees 70.55 lakh crore through government securities. And the plan is to raise rupees 12 lakh crores more. But if the bond yield is so high, borrowing huge amount of money from the market will be too expensive for the government. When the RBI floats government security for the government, it has to offer higher interest rate to match up with this high bond yield. So the cost of borrowing for the government will be very high. So the RBI and the government wants bond yield to decrease. To decrease bond yield, you have to increase the bond price. To increase bond price, just like increasing price of any other commodity, you have to either increase the demand or decrease the supply. RBI decreases the supply of long-term government securities by purchasing it. So availability in the market will decrease. essentially meaning supply of long-term government security will decrease. If that decreases, the bond price increases. But to keep the liquidity levels same in the market, RBI will also have to simultaneously pull out more money from the market. Because if RBI is purchasing the long-term government security, in return RBI will have to give money to the banks, the seller of these GSECs. Banks will have more money. So at the same time, RBI will sell short-term government securities and take money from the bank so that the liquidity level remains the same. Inflationary pressure in the economy does not come in. This is special open market operation of purchasing long-term government security and selling short-term government security is dubbed as Operation Twist. The impact of Operation Twist has been discussed in the discussion elaborately. Operation Twist is an important topic both for prelims and mains examination. If you do not feel home with this topic, please go through the explained discussion video for the 4th week of February when we discuss this topic. Now what has appeared as an extension to that discussion is this. RBI has come up with a monetary policy report recently. In the report, there are many things. One of the things in the report is Government Securities Acquisition Program 1.0. Since it is being done for the first time, so 1.0. Under this program, RBI will purchase government securities. Remember, in Operation Twist, RBI has to purchase long-term government security. The same thing is being done as a program, meaning the date will be told and the amount for which the purchasing will be done will also be told. The total plan under GSAP 1.0 is to purchase long-term government securities worth rupees 1 trillion or rupees 1 lakh crore. This will be done as part of Operation Twist, which is a special form of open market operation. RBI has done it before also. In the last financial year, RBI purchased long-term government security worth rupees 3.13 trillion. But it was done in an ad hoc manner. Whenever the RBI felt like, for whatever amount the RBI felt like, it did the operation. But as you understand, in the primary and secondary bond market, there are many participants and they need clarity on the bond yield. Based on that, they can plan their purchasing and selling of bonds. See, if you are familiar with equities and stocks, when you purchase a stock of any company in the stock market, NSE or BSE, you are wary about FII coming in and going out. If FII has brought a lot of money, the prices of share will go up. And if they have taken away their hot money and gone, then the share market will crash. So when you are spending in stocks, you keep looking on investment of FII, whether they are coming or going. Similarly, to maintain stability in the bond market, you keep looking for RBI's participation. If RBI comes in and buys too much of bonds, then the bond price will increase and the bond yield will decrease. And that will happen drastically unannounced. So now the RBI has announced the date. The first leg of GSAP 1.0 will be conducted on 15th of April 2021. RBI has also announced the amount for which this operation will be done, which is rupees 25,000 crore. The concept of Operation Twist we understood already. This government security acquisition program is nothing new. It is just Operation Twist. It is done in a programmed manner. The dates and the amounts are being announced. That's it. The next article that we are going to pick up is this: Joe Biden's radical tax proposal. What is that radical tax proposal? They are pushing for a global minimum corporate tax to be adopted first by G20 countries. The present US administration wants a global minimum corporate tax of 21%. The proposal has come from the US President and the Secretary of the State at this time, mostly to help the US in the domestic decision that they are taking. Biden administration has decided to increase the US corporate tax rate. During the Trump administration in 2017, the US corporate tax rate was decreased from 35% to 21%. Now they are planning to increase it from 21% to 28%. Minimum tax during Trump administration was brought down to 10.5%. Now the Biden administration wants it to increase it to 21%. So a global compact, a global agreement, a global arrangement to increase the corporate tax rate to a minimum of 21% is going to help US during their current time of crisis where they want billions of investment in developing public infrastructure. Apart from these reasons emanating from immediate steps that US administration is taking, US government also want to tackle the issue of low tax shelled out by some of the world's biggest corporations like Apple, Alphabet, Facebook, and some of the corporations having chains and outlets all over the world like Nike, Starbucks. These corporations tap the differences in the tax regimes in various countries and they form various subsidiaries working in low tax countries like Ireland, Caribbean nations, even the British Virgin Islands, where the effective tax rates are zero. According to the data of OECD, the average corporate tax rate in advanced economies has fallen from 32% in 2000 to 23% in 2018. The average corporate tax rate has been going down all over the world. Whether in Asia or OECD countries or Africa, or if you look at the global average, all the trends are going down over the period of time. In fact, decreasing the corporate tax rate has become strategy of some of the countries like Ireland, Netherlands, Singapore to attract footloose businesses that does not have a stringent requirement of location that can be set anywhere. For example, IT firms, they are footloose businesses. And many footloose businesses have actually shifted their business and along with that the profits into the tax havens and low tax jurisdiction countries. And that has created a competition, a kind of race towards the bottom in decreasing the corporate tax rate all over the world. If you look at the effective corporate tax rate in some of the countries like Cayman Island, British Virgin Island, they are very close to zero. Countries like Luxembourg, Netherlands, Ireland, Singapore, Hong Kong, even UK, they have very low corporate tax rates. And because of this policy of having very low tax rate, these countries are inflicting losses in terms of taxes to other countries. Let me give you a quick update on India. India has reduced the corporate tax rate to 22%. But if you add surcharge and cess, it rises very close to 25%. For new manufacturing domestic companies, the tax rate has been reduced to 15%. And minimum alternate tax rate has been reduced from 18.5% to 15%. Not only corporate tax, India also has reduced income tax. But you must know that by reduction of these tax rates, India actually has seen an increment in total tax revenue collection. On account of reduction of corporate tax rate, there has been an increment of rupees 1.45 lakh crore. You must also note that our tax rate for corporate, 22%, is very close to the asking rate of 21% by US administration and some of the studies and suggestion of OECD. So as far as US call of minimum 21% of corporate tax rate, we are already there. US itself has kept it as 28%. By reducing our corporate tax rate, we have increased our revenue. The Laffer curve shows this relation of tax revenue collection and tax rate. When you have too small tax rate, revenue collection will be low. But when you have too high tax rate, then also revenue collection will be low. There is some optimum point where the revenue collection is maximum. So pushing for higher tax rate will also not be fruitful. India has always engaged with foreign countries and organizations to enhance the implementation of double taxation avoidance agreements and to plug loopholes in the tax rate agreements. The call that has been given by US administration that needs to be discussed at various levels, but the most suitable platform to have the discussion would be OECD. The concept of base erosion and profit shifting has been developed by OECD. When multinational companies try to take advantage of different taxation system in different countries and they make various subsidiaries in the countries that have low tax regime, then that causes loss of taxation revenue opportunity to the country in which the company was originally based. That is base erosion and profit shifting. A minimum taxation system all over the world will help in removing base erosion and profit shifting. But then there is also a question of sovereign autonomy. Fixing corporate tax rate has been used as a tool for development by many countries. It will not be easy actually to bring on board all the countries to have a minimum corporate tax of 21%. For some countries, this could be too high. But yes, this call from the US administration will create an opportunity to have a wider global discussion on this topic. Now I'll give you a quiz that you must attempt immediately. The quiz will be based on only what we have seen so far. So you must get most of the question, if not all, correct. The answer will appear subsequently on the screen. Please take 5 minutes of your time and attempt the quiz with all your zeal and attention. You can post your marks in the comment section.